Welcome into the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Super Bowl week for everybody, which means Frankel brought his C game today as expected. When the stage is at its brightest, you can always bet on a couple of things. One is Tom Brady to come through and Lucas Frankel to not. But you know what, Frank? I have the utmost confidence in your improvisational skills, and we are going to dominate this podcast just like the Chiefs are going to dominate the Buccaneers on Sunday. Let's start with the quarterbacks, though. That's where all the money is. That's where all the hype is. Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT versus the baby GOAT. Frank, is this the best quarterback matchup we've ever seen in a Super Bowl?
I think on the surface right now, it's in my opinion, yes. In my opinion, because in my 5 to 10 years from now, when Mahomes has like 20 Super Bowl titles, we're gonna look back on this one and be like, holy crap. We got to see Brady against Mahomes. That's like we never got to see Kobe against LeBron. We never got to see Kobe against MJ. We never got to see, a lot of these, the two of the greatest of all time at their peaks or at the peak of their powers go head to head in the biggest stage. And when Mahomes adds 3 or 4 more Super Bowls and we look back on it, I'm telling you, when we look back on this in a couple of years or however many years, this will undoubtedly be the greatest matchup we've ever seen. I know in the past we've had Breeze against Peyton. We've had Russell Wilson against Tom Brady. We've had Terry Bradshaw against Roger Staubach. We've had Troy Aikman against, I don't know, whoever the freaking guy was. I don't remember. But there have been, you look back in history and there's a bunch. But there's no way that you can think of another one that will top this whenever we get to that point. Because these, in my opinion, are the 2 top quarterbacks that this game has ever seen.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm not sure if in the 80s, 70s, if there were 2 quarterbacks who were more necessarily in their prime together, because I think we all agree, as good as Brady is now, he was still better 10 years ago. But Brady's the best to ever do it. Maybe the best athlete. We'll get to that in a sec. Maybe the best athlete ever. And Patrick Mahomes seems to be the only guy who can even come close to looking at Brady's resume and saying, hey, he has a chance to replicate that or do better, which is insane to think about. He's been to 10 Super Bowls now, 18% of every Super Bowl that's ever been played. Tom Brady has been a quarterback in. So maybe back in the day, I'm not too good on my 70s and 80s football. Maybe there was 2 guys who were both Hall of Famers who were in their prime. Frank?
Yeah. So the other ones are Montana against John Elway. There was a Montana against Dan Marino. I mean, those games I don't believe were particularly close, but like you look back at history and you see these 2 guys. Brett Favre against John Elway happened in 97, I believe. So yeah, I mean, over the course of it's debatable. It's debatable, but I think when all is said and done, it will be Brady. Yeah. By the way, speaking of Brady, wrote another one quick point about Brady. Did you see that he kicked the rest of his family out of his house this week?
Yeah, I actually.
What could he's got like the biggest mansion on planet Earth, and he needs more space? How does that make any sense?
No, I think it's because he doesn't want any distractions. And it scares me as someone who, we'll talk about betting in a sec, but who thinks the Chiefs will win and is going to bet on the Chiefs. It scares me that Brady's this locked in and focused. And I don't know if you heard Levante David's story about guys crying on the sideline after winning the NFC Championship. And he said,
right,
what the F are you doing? We haven't done anything yet. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who hadn't won a playoff game before Brady got there in 17 years, was it? For them to celebrate like this amazing accomplishment, winning the NFC, only to have big old grandpa grumpy Brady walk over and be like, shut up, we haven't done what we started out to do yet. Like, he is completely laser locked in. I just think the Chiefs are better. But yeah, that aspect of Brady's preparation for this week scares the crap out of me.
And Brady's also saying that, after we win this game, we're immediately on to next season. Like he the way he talks, it's almost like he's messing with us. The words that are coming out of his mouth, it's almost like it's too perfect. And it's frustrating for me because normal people don't think like that. They don't think, as soon as we go, we'll be better next. He's saying like things, we'll be better next year. I'm looking forward to next year. I didn't get to prepare as well as I would have liked to over this past offseason. So he's like, we're talking about next year. Like, dude, give me a break.
We're never going to live in a world without Tom Brady. You realize that, right? Just as people who don't like Tom Brady by nature, Frank, he's going to be around until he's 55 and our kids are in high school. Like Tom Brady's going to play against one of our sons in an NFL playoff game in 2047. Just get used to it. Just accept it now.
There was a one of our guys at CBS Sports HQ tweeted out this video. I tweeted it out. It was about like the different like ego, like different personalities, personas of Tom Brady over there. It was hysterical. Highly encourage you to check it out. My favorite one was emotional long haired Tom Brady, the one just like crying after every.
Is this at CBS Sports HQ?
At CBS Sports, look, check it out. It's incredible.
Okay.
Chris Hassel. The way he puts it was just the creativity, just all like anything I've ever seen. But one last point about Tom Brady. So if he wins this year, that'll give him 7 Super Bowl titles, more than any other player or team in NFL history. Mike, if he does that on Sunday, is he the greatest athlete of all time? Any sport, anything, greatest athlete of all time?
My answer is no, because football is such a team-dependent sport that I don't think he can be regarded as the greatest athlete ever when other athletes had to do so much more for their respective teams to win or for them to win than Brady. Like, I think MJ's in a better class than someone like Tiger Woods or one of the tennis greats. I don't know, is Djokovic, Federer, or Nadal, whoever's the GOAT of that. Like,
but like, so those guys, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, I don't have the stats right on top of my head, but those guys are all neck and neck. None of those guys have separated themselves from the other. When you look at the history of the NFL, you look at sports as a whole, Tom Brady has put so much separation between him and the rest of the field, where it's basically, he's basically lapped the field 8 times.
I agree, but he can only control a quarterback is the most important position in football and probably in sports. But there's only so much Brady controls in an actual game. So to cross sports and be like, he had a bigger impact on the Patriots winning those 6 Super Bowls than Michael Jordan did on the Bulls winning those 6 NBA championships. I don't think it's comparable. Jordan was an elite offensive player and an elite defense. Imagine Brady was the middle linebacker and the quarterback. That's what Michael Jordan was for a decade and a half in Chicago. So I wouldn't put him up there. If you want to put him on that Mount Rushmore, I'm all for it. But I just think, and then like I wouldn't put a baseball player up there as the greatest athlete ever, just because they only impact half a game. So I think the best athletes ever of all time have to be in a sport that either they control their own destiny, like golf or tennis, or impact both ends of the game, like a basketball player.
So you're automatically. So I think you're sort of like you're crossing like most impactful with greatest athlete. Because I mean, you can argue impact all you want, whether it was Jordan or Brady, who LeBron, which single player had the biggest impact on their team or whatnot. The baseball thing, I hear it, but like Bo Jackson, obviously being a Pro Bowl running back,
but he does more than just that one thing. So that actually accentuates my point. Thank you.
So if I were to say who the greatest athlete ever is, just based on what they did over their careers, it would have to be a Bo Jackson for being not just a good player, but an elite player at two.
I'll agree with that.
Well, at the same time, though, we've entered a world where there's so much specialization. Where Tom Brady was drafted to play baseball, but never. I mean, I'm pretty sure he never picked up a baseball the second he decided to go to Michigan to play football. Like that portion of his life ended. So you don't see guys like if Mike Trout got the opportunity to play multiple sports like football. I bet you he'd be like Christian McCaffrey as an NFL running back, and then you see what he does on a baseball field, and he would be in the same realm as a Bo Jackson, but he just hasn't been given that opportunity to showcase those abilities that he may or may not have. So it's hard to say, but Brady, in my mind, just because of how much more dominant he's been than everybody else in his sport, you sort of have to do that. Like Tiger Woods, I mean, 10 years ago, and I heard this point that if you had told someone 10 years ago that Tiger would not have passed Jack Nicklaus for most majors of all time, like you would have looked at him with like eight heads because he was on such a historic pace, but he's really slowed down and been unable to build upon that, and that sort of hurts Tiger in that conversation. And that's why I ultimately give the edge to Brady because of the distance he's put between him and everybody else. And it's not close. And to look at another sport where there's something similar to that, you'd be hard pressed to find something comparable.
I agree with what your premise of your point is. I still think the greatest athlete ever is just a poorly worded question. And if it is, and I'm not pointing this at you, first take to this debate, like it's been everywhere. I think they should narrow down what they mean or specify exactly what they're looking for when they ask that question. So that's my 2 cents. Let's talk some Super Bowl bets, Frank. I know you got some that you're very interested in moving forward.
Well, I haven't bet on the game yet, but and I'm probably gonna only put like $25 on the Chiefs -3, and then I'll see how the game goes. But if they fall behind, and I can get them for less than a field goal or at a pick 'em, I mean, I'm gonna hammer them, absolutely hammer them. Because when push comes to shove, Patrick Mahomes, if he needs a play, he will make that play every single time. It's incredible, and there's not a single player in this league, and we've seen it over the course of the regular season. I know that the Chiefs didn't necessarily blow teams away, but every time the Chiefs had to make a play, Patrick Mahomes made the play. It was absolutely incredible. He's 25-1 in his last 26 starts. He just knows when to flip the switch, and there's not a single player I trust more than him. So I'm going to bet on the Chiefs probably on Sunday at some point, assuming Aaron Rodgers wins MVP.
Do you know what's really interesting about this whole game, by the way? So everyone's talking about the Chiefs not having Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, their 2 tackles, and how Tampa Bay's pass rush has a chance to wreak havoc. Don't you remember last Super Bowl? Patrick Mahomes and those Chiefs, they had a healthy offensive line, but they were going up against the 49ers. And wasn't Mahomes under duress for about 85% of the first 3.5 quarters? And then in the fourth quarter, he was like, all right, I'm just going to drop back so far the defense can't touch me, and I could still chuck it on a dot and find a way to complete a 54-yard pass to Tyreek Hill that ended up being the game-changing play. I don't get why everyone's making such a big deal about the tackles not being healthy. I understand there's going to get pressure on Mahomes, and I understand you need to pressure a quarterback in order to win, but if there's any guy in the league, even on a bum foot, who can evade that pressure, turn his body, and flick the ball with no remorse, it's Patrick Mahomes. So that whole storyline, Frank, which I think has driven the line down more. I think they'd be more than 3.5.
The line hasn't. I mean, I guess there were times it went to 3.5. It's been at 3.
No. But I mean, I think the Chiefs would have opened up as like a 5-point favorite had they had healthy tackles.
Well, let's say it was at a neutral field and not at the Buccaneers' home stadium, I think it would probably be Chiefs -4 or -5. And I think that being the fact that they're playing essentially a road game, which has never happened before, is sort of it's helping the Buccaneers be a little closer than maybe it should be. Like, I mean, Coward made a good point though. Like, you look at the best players in this game. The Chiefs have Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey. After that, there's a bunch of Buccaneers before there's any other Chiefs. Whether it's Brady, Evans, Godwin, Levante David, Ndamukong Suh, JPP. I mean, the Buccaneers, you could argue, have, when top to bottom, the more talented roster. It's just at the most prime positions. Quarterback.
Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu are definitely in that conversation.
It's close. It's close, though. It's close. But we'll see.
They're I think if you split it in half, 5 of the top 10 players are in Kansas City. 5 of the top 10 players are on Tampa Bay. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. Like, I don't think it's a 3-score game, but we could say this. We've said it before. We'll say it again. And I apologize for the sirens going by, Frank. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but
I hear them.
Patrick Mahomes with a field goal. How do you not take that? I mean, the dude doesn't lose. I don't know how you don't take that.
All right. So in terms of prop bets, here's what I got. The first one, which I saw it, and it was just like, in what universe does this not hit? But knowing my luck, it's not going to hit. So here's what it is. It's 4 things have to happen. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes each have to throw for at least 200 yards passing. To put that in perspective, Mahomes' passing yards prop is in upwards of 339 passing yards.
It's that high now?
Yeah, it went up to like 339 at last check.
Okay.
And so assuming they don't get hurt, that's pretty much a lock. Those guys will each throw at least 200 yards.
Agreed.
And 2 things that have to happen: Kelsey and Hill have to each have at least 70 yards receiving, and that is at even money.
Okay.
And
is this a parlay, by the way?
They are specials. That every sports book has different ones. The one I use has this specific one, so I saw it and I was like, man, all Mahomes does is throw to Hill and Kelsey. Like, I mean, I know Sammy Watkins is going to be back, which is why his over-under is 36.5, which could be one of the more value bets of the Super Bowl, because he hasn't played in so long, and people are just sort of overlooking the fact that, if they put so much coverage to Hill and Kelsey, who's the next guy Mahomes could think of? It is Sammy Watkins. So have an eye on that one. I haven't bet it. I'm probably not going to, but that's just one of those that like he could also have no catches. So at the end of the day,
I wouldn't touch that bet.
Okay, and here's the other one, and this one is it was plus 225. Mahomes to have at least 300 yards passing, and Kelsey to have at least 100 yards receiving, plus 225. And the odds for that they were too good for me to pass up. It may not happen, but at plus 225, I mean, how do you not take that? So those are my two favorite props as of now.
So you went with real props. I kind of went with some more fun props. So
like coin toss, like tails never.
No, well, I have both. I did for the other podcast. I make picks for. I gave some player props, like anytime touchdown for Leonard Fournette was plus 25. I like the first half under of 28.
Plus 20, plus 225, you mean?
Plus 125.
Oh, plus 125. Okay,
plus you said 125. I like Mahomes to throw for 300 plus and a Chiefs win at plus 145. And I like Rob Gronkowski first touchdown odds at 16-1. But I've already given those picks. I'm here to give you some fun picks, Frank. How about this? The Super Bowl MVP will mention what first in his speech? His teammates is minus 160 favorite, God plus 200, or family plus 600. They always thank God first. That's virtually free money on God. Either kicker will hit an upright or a crossbar on a missed kick. Yes, plus 300. No, minus 500. I think I put $10 on yes there. Bucker has struggled on PATs, and Matt Gay is just not a good kicker. So the Super Bowl jitters can get to them. How about this? Will Tom Brady attempt a high five an official? Yes, plus 600. No, minus 1,500. That's a fun bet to bet yes on just because it'd be fun. And you know how Twitter would go if they lose. How many times will Belichick be mentioned in the broadcast? Under one, minus 350. Over one, plus 245. Over.
I thought it was 1.5. It's only one?
Odd Shark had one.
Okay. I think Belichick gets mentioned multiple times.
I do too. I have over free money on my notes. And then lastly, some MVP odds. I don't think there's any money to be made betting Mahomes or Brady, but I like a couple of defensive players. Shaq Barrett's 45-1. Antonio Brown's 55-1.
Oh, Antonio Brown.
My dad texted me today and said, Antonio Brown, 55-1. That's juicy. I don't think it'll happen, but shout out to my dad for trying to drop some knowledge. And then Chris Jones at 66-1 if the Chiefs defense stymies Tampa Bay and he comes up with a pick six or a fumble recovery touchdown. It's not impossible that he could do that. So those are my favorite Super Bowl odds.
Last one I love is over 2.5 players to throw a pass. I think it's pretty much a lock that another player besides Brady and Mahomes will attempt a pass in this game. I have no idea who it'll be. Probably Travis Kelce, but that to me is one of probably the single most fun one of the whole game. Over 2.5 players to throw a pass in the game.
I like that. I actually like that a lot. What book is that in?
That was on I believe it was on Bovada and William Hill.
Okay.
Bovada and William Hill.
Okay.
All right, Mike. Super Bowls obviously is the single most watched event of the year. You got the halftime show. So what aspect of the Super Bowl do you hate the most?
Do I hate the most? Yeah. The fact that the halftime show gets as much attention as it does. I can't stand the fact that you go to, or I guess pre-COVID, you would go to parties and like halftime's when everyone should finally talk and discuss the game, and everyone's like, "No, shut up." The Who's playing. I don't care. It's a TV concert. It's good for the memes, but like that whole aspect of it is dumb. I can't get into it. So
I just don't like how people that don't watch a single second of football the whole year all of a sudden turn on the game and pretend like they know what they're talking about.
So we're on the same page. Yeah, they're only watching for the commercials and halftime.
But at the same time, though, that nothing competes with the Super Bowl. Whenever the Super Bowl is on, I mean, you probably get like paid programming on every other channel that's happening at that moment. Because literally all the games, NBA, NHL, college basketball, nothing is happening between the hours of 6 and 10 o'clock. That block of time is completely left alone for the Super Bowl. There's not a single sporting event in the world that has
There's
that.
not another event in the world, but not sporting, any event in the world that has that type of pull. So,
all right, let's move on to some other.
Wait, you forgot your one Super Bowl question on there that you didn't have. Favorite Super Bowl food?
I mean, I'm a big. It's got to be guacamole, right? I mean, anytime I watch football, I eat guac. What do you shake your head at me like that?
I love guac, but you could have guac with the AFC Championship. You could have guac with the Giants Cowboys Week 17 useless matchup. Super Bowl calls for two things: nachos and buffalo chicken dip. You don't have that at your Super Bowl party. It's not a Super Bowl party. Don't have Super Bowl parties because of COVID. Do it by yourself. We practice social distancing and all CDC guidelines on this podcast. But if you were to go to a Super Bowl party in future years or in previous years, if it didn't have buffalo chicken dip and or nachos, it wasn't a real party.
I mean, nachos are so hit or miss that I almost can't put it there because they're so inconsistent. I hate soggy nachos. Those to me are some of the most, one of the worst things. It's just like, it's like drenched in like crap.
Gefilte fish or soggy nachos?
Oh, gefilte fish.
Hell yeah. Team gefilte fish all the day. Let's go,
you
man.
Like gefilte fish?
I love, love's a strong word. I do like gefilte fish though.
I'm a huge fan. I ate a bunch of it during Passover. Passover's actually come up again. I remember that because it's so like coincided with the start of the pandemic, because shortly after the pandemic was Passover and I was eating my noodle kugel, and I got to make noodle kugel again and gefilte fish. It was great time in the food world.
Wait, real quick. One of my mom's favorite stories about you ever is you telling us about your, I think it was a Passover Seder with the Yankees on the Lucas and Lucas radio show, and they wanted to start Seder in the 8th or 9th inning, and you refused to go. You're like, Mariano Rivera's going to pitch. I'm not starting Seder until Mariano Rivera gets out. And I think they won the game, and it was all good. But they lost. That's what it was. And then you blame Jeremy Frankel for great. My mom loves that story. So
it was opening day. It was like a 1-run game in the 9th inning. I was like, let me just please watch the end of it. Like, whatever. A very bad memory. A lot of frustration. I hate it.
I missed that, Frank.
All right, let's go right to the Yankees off that.
Yeah.
So if you were to give the Yankees a grade for this offseason, what would it be?
DNP, did not participate.
All they did was they
re-signed LeMahieu. So
they traded for Jameson Taillon and signed Corey Kluber. I give them, only because of LeMahieu, I give them like a D+.
I was gonna say a C- because they got LeMahieu, which is what they had to do. So they did at least do the minimum, the bare freaking minimum, and nothing above. So that's a C, right? But because it's the Yankees, they lose half a point because they should be doing more than the bare minimum.
It's just like it's just so hard for me to get like I'm actually excited for like the Yankees to play again and excited for the season, but it's so hard for me to really have a wow, this team has the potential to do great things this year. Like that's just not there for me, and it's very unfortunate because I'm such a big fan, and it's been so long since we've won. It's really unfortunate that they've just sort of are lollygagging through the offseason and not really making big leaps and trying to improve this roster. Speaking of, I know this isn't really something that I didn't bring it up to you, but so I've been seeing these polls, and all they do is just enrage me. The MLB Network released a poll of the best shortstops in baseball. Who do you think number one was?
I saw this. This is it's Trevor Story, which is
like Trevor freaking like who?
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. I want to know a single general manager, if you had the option to get Fernando Tatis Jr. or Trevor Story, how many with a straight face would say Trevor Story? Because that is a complete joke. Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to the Hall of Fame. If he retired today, he's a freaking Hall of Famer. That guy is going to win multiple MVPs. He is the single biggest reason why the Padres, the freaking San Diego Padres, one of the least relevant teams, were able to get Manny Machado, Blake Snell, because he's the centerpiece. He changed the culture with that team. He is a transcendent talent. And for someone to have the unmitigated gall to put Trevor Story ahead of Fernando Tatis Jr. is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen in the history of sports media. Whoever made that list should be banned from making any list and anything the rest of their lives. It's one of the biggest jokes ever. I can't believe this is what I'm seeing.
That has to be a social media breakout. I'm not going to even add anything to it because you said it all. Next. Next.
Nolan Arenado to the San Diego Padres. This is just going back to the Yankees here. Like the backlash and the ramifications of this stupid Giancarlo Stanton trade. I mean, the Yankees probably would have ruined it in the past by signing either Harper or Machado or another big time free agent. So like it may not have come to this, but Nolan Arenado, man, I would take him over Stanton like a million times out of a million.
Yeah. Oh, is Arenado like the 7th best player in baseball? Like,
I believe the list of on third baseman. Let me pull.
what was he, like the 17th best third baseman by these GM standards?
Let me pull up the list here. But
While you're, I'll say this: Stanton, with his play on the field combined with his salary, it's a handcuff. The Yankees are literally handcuffed to a guy who's just never available and not capable of producing winning baseball plays. You got the list?
I will have it shortly here. Here it is. Okay, so who do you think number 1 was? Best third baseman in baseball?
Arenado?
No, it wasn't Arenado. It was Anthony Rendon from the Angels. Arenado was 3rd. And I mean, listen,
wait. He was 3rd?
And Machado was 5th.
Wait. I'm trying to think of who'd be 2nd then.
Alex Bregman.
Yeah, he's good.
I mean, he's all right.
He cheats, but he's okay.
I mean, my God. I mean, for me, the best 2 third basemen in baseball are Manny Machado and Nolan Arenado.
Give me the top 10 real quick.
Rendon, Bregman, Arenado, Jose Ramirez, Manny Machado, Justin Turner, Matt Chapman, Josh Donaldson, the great Gio Urshela, and Eugenio Suarez from the Reds.
That list is so bad. That list, I mean, Urshela is not a top 10 third baseman.
I mean, but that's not the point. The moral of the story is the best 2 third basemen in baseball are Nolan Arenado and Manny Machado. And there's no one I'd rather have more than those 2 guys.
Once again, I don't think I want to give that list any more attention than it deserves or than you've already given it. So I'm going to plead the 5th and say
the most frustrating part about it is that it's coming from Major League Baseball. Like these, like the powers that be are actually from, like, it's not one of those like Bleacher Report things or USA Today or ESPN. This is like Major League freaking baseball. Whatever. All right, we got to move on. Other NFL storylines that we missed over the past week. The Rams got Matt Stafford and traded away Jared Goff. I absolutely love this move for the Rams. I think this makes them the single best team in the NFC West. I think that Stafford will be my fantasy quarterback next year. And this is such a monumental upgrade. And to see Stafford with a good support system, a good offensive line, a great defense to rely on, and weapons like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Cam Akers. I mean, he is going to absolutely shine with that team. Like, I mean, he was in such a horrific situation with the Lions. So much instability, horrific coaching, and to see him with a great offensive line in Sean McVay, he is going to shine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes top 3 in MVP next year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those rare trades where both teams actually made out pretty well. I mean, Detroit got 2 first-round picks back and a quality starter in Jared Goff. He's not great, but he's definitely good enough to win you some games. He has the 4th most wins in the NFL over the last 5 years, which I think is a funny stat when people look at quarterbacks, because it's, oh, you don't win enough, you stink. But then you got a guy like Jared Goff who has the 4th most wins in the league, and he also kind of stinks. So I do think the offensive options in LA are almost limitless now. And the vertical passing threat that Stafford will add to that offense will open up McVay's full playbook. McVay's been working with 60% of his playbook because Goff just won't throw the ball deep. That was one of the knocks on him. He's scared to throw the deep ball. So McVay called his whole offensive game plan around these intermediate passes and this running game. Now you add the deep element to it, which opens up everything else, and Stafford's an elite deep ball passer. That Rams team is going to be really scary. And as far as Detroit goes, they got 2 first-round picks. Will they be great picks? No, but, if it's 22 again, Justin Jefferson was a 22nd pick. I think anyone would like to hit home run gold with a selection like that. So it's one of those trades where it works out for both teams. And I keep seeing, and this could transition to Deshaun Watson, but I keep seeing teams or people say, well, if Stafford got 2 first-round picks, Watson deserves like 7. And while that may be true in theory, he really only got 1 first-round pick. The other first-round pick was for taking on Jared Goff's contract for the next 3 years and all that guaranteed money. So it was really 1 pick for Stafford, a 2nd pick for taking Goff off their books. Watson's probably 3 first-round picks worth.
My gut says Watson does not get traded. I think that he ends up staying. I think that he's gonna. I mean, I think he ends up holding out. He gets fined millions of dollars, and eventually he sucks it up and goes. I just, based on the way the Texans are talking, I mean, I could be a sucker for believing.
No, I agree. I actually agree. I don't think he gets traded.
So the plan B for the Jets in that regard, obviously, you getting Deshaun Watson's a complete franchise changer. But if you do all right, so let's say you keep Sam Darnold, here's what you do. You draft Penei Sewell number 2. You have the best offensive line in the AFC. You draft Najee Harris, and you have a running back for the next 7 to 8 years, an elite running back, because I think from day one he will come in and he will be Derrick Henry-esque. That's how good I think Najee Harris will be at the next level. And 3, you sign Allen Robinson, and that gives you an elite number 1 receiver to pair with Denzel Mims and Jamison Crowder. And just by those things, the outlook on the Jets changes immensely. And I think that Sam Darnold, with that offensive line, and a running back that he can actually rely upon, a true number 1 receiver in Allen Robinson, that just changes everything for the Jets. And if they were able to pull that off, then Joe Douglas will have done an outstanding job. At the end of the day, it may not mean anything because Sam Darnold will be able to prove once and for all whether he can actually play in this league or not. And that's sort of where I stand on the whole Deshaun Watson, the Jets front.
Yeah, I like that entire plan. You said it last week, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I'm glad you said it again so we could hammer that point home. I don't have any issue with the Jets taking Sewell at 2. I have no issue. Like, if you're not sure if you have a quarterback or not, but you might, put him in the best position to succeed to find out if you do or you do not. Because guess what? If Darnold stinks again, Frank, he'll be picking the top 5 again, and you can always go trade up and get that quarterback that might be able to succeed behind that line and all the weapons they have. So I'm not against taking Sewell at 2. I think they'll probably pick, if they're not taking a quarterback, to move down 2 or 3 spots. I think the ammunition a team will have to give the Jets to move into that number 2 slot will be massive. And then maybe that gives them the ammo to move up next season when they know Darnold's not the guy, or if Darnold is the guy, then they have that extra pick to keep building around them. So I think as far as the Jets go, I'm leaning less and less towards wanting them to get another quarterback. But as far as Watson goes, I just think Houston's like, you're one of the 5 or 6 best players in the league. Like, you're not leaving. Like, I'm sorry. I understand you're unhappy now. Are you going to be unhappy $10 million later without playing? I'm with you. I think it's going to be a stalemate, and I don't think Houston's going to budge.
My only fear is that if they don't end up drafting Zach Wilson, he's going to turn into Mahomes 2.0. Like that's sort of where I've come to with the Jets, is that whenever they don't draft a quarterback or that's sort of how it'll end up. Like, could you imagine if they took Mahomes over like Jamal Adams, whatever? I don't, whatever. All right, we're done with the Jets. The Brooklyn Nets, man, it's been a roller coaster ride here. The loss to the Wizards on Sunday was one of the most heartbreaking, just how did that happen games that I've ever seen. They were up by 5 points with 12 seconds left and lost by 3. I mean, that is really, really hard to do. The Wizards were plus 2,500 on the money line with 12 seconds left and won. God bless anyone that took that, but it was. But then they come back against the Clippers on Tuesday and they beat them. And Kyrie Irving drops 39, Harden triple-double. Durant is just 11 of 13 from the field. I mean, I've never seen a more efficient scorer in my life than Kevin Durant. It just doesn't miss. It's unbelievable.
There has never been a more efficient scorer than Kevin Durant. So
what you want about this Nets team? They're entertaining as entertaining it could be. They can't play like a defense. Hopefully, Iman Shumpert will solidify that back end, and they can get like a JaVale McGee or somebody that can defend Joel Embiid, because the Nets play the Sixers on Saturday night. And I'm telling you right now, whatever Joel Embiid's point prop is, put your life savings on the over, because the Nets have nobody that can even come close to stopping him. He might drop 60 points on Saturday. You laugh, it's going to happen.
No, well, here's the thing with the Nets. They're either 9-3 and 10-3. I'm not sure, against teams with winning records, and they're
right. They get up for games and they don't for others, which is because the 4 of their losses have been they've lost twice and the Wizards twice.
Yeah, and they just don't care in those games. And when you play an NBA team and you don't play defense like the Nets do, someone's going to get hot. And when someone gets hot, it doesn't matter if you have KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, because Colin Sexton on any given night can outshoot all 3 of them by himself. So they haven't gotten up for some of these less, I don't want to say less important, but less high profile games. And the fact that they're doing that while still showing up in the big games, I know playing and having that on and off switch is a dangerous line to play on. But if you do it for an entire season, it gives me at least confidence that come playoff time, that switch will be there for them. My one concern with Brooklyn right now is how many minutes Durant, especially Harden and Kyrie, are playing. I think in a couple of weeks, we may see Steve Nash dial that back down a little bit just to conserve these guys for the playoffs. But I mean, they're playing an absurd amount of minutes, Frank. But outside of that, like, they're really freaking fun. And we have Kevin Durant and no one else in the league does. And that is enough to make me happy as a Nets fan.
The thing, though, that Steve Nash has done is that he's been resting Durant a lot. I mean, Harden gets his day off. Kyrie, will take his sabbatical. Whoever knows how many more of those he'll take this year. So, I mean, it's not like they're playing 40 minutes every single night. Like they're getting.
Durant's played a ton of minutes, more than anyone else. Durant's played a ton of minutes.
And by the way, last thing, so the NBA has decided that they are going to hold an All-Star game, which is the single dumbest decision of the pandemic. Why would you bring all the league together into one small environment so that everyone can get COVID and the season gets shut down? I mean, what are you doing, Adam Silver? Like, what is the benefit of having an All-Star game during the middle of a freaking pandemic? How tone deaf are you? I thought you were. I always envisioned that he was like a smart guy, like really, really intelligent, very, very witty. Understood what the league needed, and an All-Star game is the last thing the league needs right now. It is the single worst thing you could possibly do. Bringing all these people into one small area and have them interact with each other couldn't make any less sense. And I'm just baffled that the league and someone like Adam Silver is actually supportive of that decision. I'm just truly, truly astonished.
It makes no sense. I don't know who is really pushing for this, because Silver and everything he's done, like, they did the bubble. They've canceled games because teams, like, they've been so COVID conscious and smart that this seems to go against all of that. So it makes me feel like someone internally or some entity is pushing for this. Why don't you do what the NFL did? Just name your all-stars. That's more interesting than the game anyways, is finding out who actually makes the team and who gets snubbed. Why don't you just name your all-stars, let them play 2K or whatever, and let them go? It makes no sense to get them all together, especially in Atlanta, where you have fans in the stands, and that's kind of a hotbed still. So I'm with you. Dumb idea. We agree too much on this podcast. We have to find some topics that we agree less on next. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a dumb idea, and it just seems to go against everything else the NBA has stood for with this whole pandemic. They were the first league to shut down. The bubble worked to perfection. They've had 40-something games canceled this year already or postponed because of COVID. Why do you need to take that extra risk? And God forbid something happens. God forbid COVID gets in there. That's 2 weeks without the 24 best players in the league. That sucks. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's worth it.
That will do it for this episode of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Make sure you cash those tickets on Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. We'll see you guys next week.